going off of what I just shared about the Manasseh and Ephraim, where his father refused and said, he will become a people, that's that Manasseh, Jesus, becoming a people, Christians, and he will be eminent, but truly Ephraim, will be more eminent than him. His seed, that descendant of Ephraim, will be the multitude. Well, it's the word for fullness, the fullness of the nations. Because right here it tells you that, Ephraim and Manasseh, they'll be called after the name of their brothers in their inheritance, and their brothers are Christians, so they'll be called Christ. And you can see a blessing that goes on Joseph here. He basically gets all these blessings of the womb, the hills, and all the land. It's like we see in Deuteronomy 33. At verse 13, and of Joseph he said, his land is blessed by Yahweh with the precious things of the skies, and with the dew in the deep that lies beneath, with the best of the produce of the sun, the best yields of the month, and the first of the ancient mountains, and the best of the age-old hills, and with the best of the land and its fullness, in the favor of him who lived in the bush. Let it come on the head of Joseph, and on the top of the head of him who was set apart from his brothers. Like the firstborn of a bullock is his glory, and his horns, and the horns are of the wild ox are his horns. That firstborn bullock, that's like a slave cattle that, it's born to, just to do work and then get sacrificed. A wild oxen's a free one. It's a lot more glorious. You see a little transformation there. It's like one coming to be slaughtered and then transformed. And with them he will gore the peoples of the ends of the earth. These are the 10,000s of Ephraim and the thousands of Manasseh. There'll be more on that. 10,000s and thousands. But Daniel 8. I saw in the vision that I was by the canal of Uli. Then I lifted my eyes and looked, and there before the canal stood a ram that had 2 horns. A ram's like a full-grown sheep. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher one came up last. It's like that same confusion with Manasseh and Ephraim. Manasseh's the firstborn, not so father, and but it was dealing with the birthright, and Ephraim has a birthright, and he came out later. So you got Jesus that comes first, and Ephraim later. And I saw the ram budding westwards and northwards and southwards, so that no beast could stand before him, nor was there anybody who could bring deliverance out of his hand, but he acted in keeping with his will and became powerful. See, that same thing true with Manasseh will be true with, Ephraim, that he's going to keep, the will of the Father, the Creator, and, the Father's going to make him powerful. And as I was considering, suddenly a male goat came from the west across the surface of the whole earth, and it did not touch the ground, and the goat had a conspicuous horn between its eyes. And it came towards the ram which had the 2 horns that I had seen standing before the canal, and it ran at it in its fury of its strength. And we know Jesus was killed, and Ephraim's going to be killed too. And I saw it come close to the ram, and it was moved with anger and against it, and it struck the ram and shattered its 2 horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand up to it. But it threw it down to the ground and trampled on it, and there was no deliverer for the ram from its hands. So the male goat grew exceedingly strong, and when it was strong, the great horn was broken in pieces. And instead of it, 4 conspicuous ones came up towards the 4 winds of the skies. You can go to Matthew 24, and Jesus talks about the sign of the Son of Man coming up, and in the sky, and people will wail and gnash their teeth, and then he'll send his messengers to gather the elect from the 4 winds. So we're dealing with like the same time frame here. And out of one of them a little horn emerged, which grew exceedingly powerful towards the south and towards the east and towards the glorious land. See, because that great horn, they're going to kill it, and they're going to come up. and cause deceit to prosper and all that, but only for a time. And it grew vast and as far as the hosts of the heavens, and it threw some of the hosts and some of the stars down to the ground and trampled them underfoot, just like you see in Revelation 12. Because you got the woman clothed with the sun, moon, and stars, and has a child inside it ready to be devoured, and that dragon that wants to devour it, and its tail dragged down a third of the stars and all that. Same thing here. And it magnified itself as high as the leader of the army. And see, they're going to kill the ones that are for Ephraim too, the elect. And by it the regular sacrifice was removed, and the place of his sanctuary was thrown down. See, because Jesus was to build a house. And Habakkuk tells you that Yahweh is in his temple. Because of transgression, an army was given over to oppose the regular sacrifice, and it threw truth down to the ground, and it did it with effect and succeeded. It makes it desolate and all that. But so I want to tell you about a little dream I had in relation to this Daniel prophecy I'm telling you about. It was about 2016, I believe, November, and I was dreaming, and it was just dark, and in front of me I saw a light in the distance, and it just like zoomed in, and I saw someone sitting there like this, head down, and all of a sudden he like looked up, and it's like the whole time before that was happening I was thinking, is that Jesus? Because I just saw the hands up, and like it just pierced like my whole insides, like it radiated with love. I mean, I just thought, how great is this man in front of me? And I before I could even really gravitate like all the emotions of that, I felt myself just like raise up, and in that moment, like I was on my belly and I started crawling towards like the edge of a cliff, and I looked down and there was a valley and a river, and on the other side it was Jesus walking with a crowd of people just carrying his cross, dragging it, and then before I knew it, I was raised up again, and it was dark, and I had to go because I was inside the bushes, and I cleared them out, and I was on this hill, and I saw train tracks just as far as the eye could see in the distance, with the sun and other hilly land, and all of a sudden it was, I kind of woke up after that, and it's pretty cool. So check this out, Job 33, verse 14. For El speaks once, yes, twice. Man does not perceive it. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls over men, and slumberings on the bed, then he opens the ears of mortal men and seals their instruction, so that he can draw man away from his own purpose and pardon the pride of man. And he holds his life back from the pit and his life from perishing by the sword. And he chastens him with pain on his bed and with enduring strife in his bones, so that his life loathes his food and his heart loathes delicate food, and his flesh wastes away from sight, and his unseen bones stick out. Yes, his life draws near to the pit, and his life to the causes of death. And you can also see Numbers 12 about that, being in dreams, and Yah instructs us in dreams, and as you can see, it lines up with stuff in the Word too, and I'll show you. But so if there is a mediator for him, a mediator, one among 1,000s, remember that tens of thousands of Ephraim, thousands of Manasseh. I said Manasseh comes first, and one mediator between God and man, the man, Christ Jesus. So here you go, I got a picture of him right here. So that mediator to show man his uprightness, then he is gracious to him and says, deliver him from going down to the sepulchre. I have found a ransom. Because you got that ransom with the inaugurating the covenant with blood, but So I would just read this whole thing. It's pretty interesting. Like verse 28, he will deliver his life from going into the sepulchre, and his life will see the light of life. Here now, El works all these things with a man 2 or 3 times to bring back his life from the sepulchre to be enlightened with the light of the living. So, as you can see, how what helped me figure out to unlock this part, which it was supposed to be sealed till the time of the end. So, but yet it's got it unlocked. So we got 2 horns, and one was higher than the other, and the higher one came up last. So you can kind of see, like when I had that dream, I was in the bush, kind of like you see in that Deuteronomy, and I was up higher than Jesus when I was, looking at him across the canal. And check it out here, chapter 12. But you, Daniel, close up the words, seal the scroll until the time of the end. Many will apostatize, and calamities will increase. Then I, Daniel, looked and marked this. 2 others stood there, one on one side of the river bank, the other on the other side. The one that's up higher and the one that's down lower, the horns from the ram. And one said to the man clothed in linen, and we see one getting clothed in linen in a type and shadow in the book of Zechariah, like a washing from the blood. And look, that one who was above the waters of the river, that was that one up higher. How long until the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand to the heavens, and he swore by him who lives throughout the eon, that it will be for a time, times, and half. And when he will have accomplished distributing the power of the set-apart people, all these things will be finished. And I heard, but I did not understand. Not at that time, not till the time of the end.